My name's Andrew Brydon. I live in Alnwick, and I'm 30. No, I'm not. I'm 68.
So can you tell me a little bit about your social life in the 80s in Alnwick?
In Alnwick in the 80s, I didn't have a lot of social life because I worked at weekends mainly, so there wasn't a lot of time. But I did play a little bit golf, and that was about it really. So.
Did you ever go out to the pub?
Yeah, we used to go out, but not every weekend, because I used to work a lot at weekends, so we didn't have a lot of time. If we did go out, we were out with friends and had a meal, and then came back to the house sort of style. So that was it.
What kind of music were you into?
It was sometimes we used to go to see houses, and we used to go and see the live groups. There was like the Marmalade and them. We used to be at see houses, and so there was also the Who and things like that. Groups like that used to come, so we used to go there.
The Who?
Yeah.
As in the actual Who?
Mhm.
That's cool.
Yeah. So I've seen them at Kelso, mind, but that was a different thing.
This isn't anything to do with Alnwick, but do you remember Live Aid?
Live Aid.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can remember it. I can remember the name.
Do you like music like Queen and Michael Jackson and the 80s?
Yeah, I was around about that era. Yeah, you like that sort of music, but I wasn't really into it. I would enjoy listening to it, but I wouldn't go and see them live or anything like that. And that was it.
What was that? Sorry, what was it like seeing the Who?
Sorry?
What was the Who like to see live?
It was massive. That was in Kelso, and just in a place called the Corn Exchange, and they came there for a night, and it was just manic. It was just ridiculous, really. But they were good.
Brilliant band.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And what was it like, a big open air concert thing?
No, it was just in a big hall, a massive hall in Kelso. So that was it. There used to be a few live groups came there, and he just went the ones which you want to see. Quite enjoyed Elton John and them. See what he was all right. But as I say, I wasn't into a great lot of music in the 80s.
Or TV shows?
Sorry?
TV shows. What were your favourite shows to watch?
Yeah. TV shows where there wasn't as many channels then. I mean, there was not a great lot on, so I didn't really bother watching a lot of TV. I did not. But I know, but I had other things to do. I didn't have. I was working most of the time. I used to work shifts, so that was something to look at. You couldn't arrange. You couldn't watch a program like you can now. Like you've got all these things you can flick back and watch the program. There was nothing like that. You did have a recorder, but it didn't always. I didn't feel right if you'd recorded it and then you sat and watched it through the day, because you had other things to do. I think there was maximum 5, so 4 or 5. That was it. So that was it. I mean, it's not like you've got now. You can sit down and watch something in the morning. Didn't work.
And how did you, when you say you had a recorder, what sort of recorder was it?
It was one of them with a tape, with a cassette tape about that size. You just put in.
Was the remote control on a wire?
Remote
control was it on a wire?
Yeah.
You had to put the wire into it.
Well, you had. I used to play golf when I finished at night after a night shift, a 4 shift anyway. Used to go down about 6 o'clock in the morning to Warkworth and play golf. And you used to have Tony Jacklin and them. It was quite good. But as I say, you only played that when you had time to go and play, because it took up about 3 or 4 hours. Well, after you've done a night shift, you don't feel like walking about a golf course unless you're doing, unless it's good weather. We moved into a house, it was a terraced house, Duke Street, which is just down beside Wagonway Road, just off Wagonway. We moved there, and was there for a few years. And then we moved into Auger Terrace, which is a semi-detached house, 3-bedroomed, and that's where we are now, just in Alnwick still.
Has it changed much, Alnwick, since the 80s when you moved?
Yeah, a load. The town centre, I wouldn't say It's not changed that lot, but the outskirts have, the factories and the units and different things and the housing. But I wouldn't say Alnwick itself in the town has changed a great lot. Obviously you're not allowed to change a great lot in Alnwick because it's an old town, so that's, but it has changed massively. It's doubled in size.
Different.
It's non-existent now, I would say, because everybody is they're working away or work at Newcastle. They come home, they do their shopping online, and they don't mix in the same as they used to do. They never, you know, it's just they don't have the community spirit because everything's done online now.
Back in the 80s.
We used to have street parties in Duke Street at different times, and you don't seem to get that now, you know, in the streets. So it's and different things, you know, different. I used to play bowls up here in the hall, and they had to close down because of lack of interest, really, because nobody was bothered. They didn't want to know. They'd rather stop in the house and do computer or anything like that. So. Or other interests. They might have other interests. I don't know.
Do you think it's changed for the worse since the 80s?
Yeah, I think more people tend to shut themselves away rather than mix.
What was your experience of like?
The pubs were quite full, and they were quite full from early on at night. That's until the times changed, because 10:30, 11 o'clock, people were more or less going home then. So, you know, it's you had a certain space of time, and that was it. And everybody was out early, so that was the way it was. But now you can drink all day, so people don't seem to go out as early and mix as much.
How much did you pay for a pint?
Oh, I think the first pint I got was 1970. It was about 1 shilling and 1 and 5 pence or something like that, which is about 12 and a half pence now. That was at Shellbottle Club. That was a club, so that was a working men's club, and that was it. So compared to from then to now, you can see why people haven't gone out now as well, because of the price of drink. I mean, when you're paying £4 for a pint, and you're thinking, well, your rent and everything's like that's got to go up. You've got to take into consideration what you've got to cut your cloth according to how you live.
Sorry.
But did Scott at the street parties, was he always robbing everybody's drinks?
Well, that's that's normally when the police got involved. That's normally when the police got involved. No, there was one time somebody reported us to the police because they thought there was a riot going on in the back of Duke Street. And the next thing we knew, there was a police van, a riot van came up to try and stop things, but it was just a party. It was just the music was playing and somebody thought it was a riot going on, so they called the police and that was it. They went away, there was no bother. It was just, that was one of the Duke Street parties, that one. So.
It was like one party a year, or like at a certain time, and who organised it and stuff like that?
It was just more or less one party a year, and I think it was the women in the street that arranged it all. In fact, the women still go around having coffee with the ones that are still in the street. So they still keep in touch with everybody, I think. So, but that's how it goes. That used to be packed out, Alnwick Fair, but through time it's the same. It just gradually went down and down. There's just less people get interested in it, and they don't like to take on the responsibility. It's a big responsibility taking on any of these things, I think, and you've got to be dedicated to do it. So that's why it's more or less finished now. You know.
Was it enjoyable? What sort of, did you get involved, or was there good events specifically at the fair that you liked?
You used to go to the Yard of Ale, and the strongman competition was one thing you used to pull in, quite a lot of people. And there used to be races in the marketplace, jumping bales of straw and things, and You know, it was just the duck and stool, of course. That was one of the main things. So that's where your wenches went and got wet. So, but that got stopped, and I think I don't know why it got stopped. Maybe a little bit of health and safety, maybe, I don't know. But it just went too far, and it spoils a lot of things. We bought the house to move to. At the time we lived at Shilbottle, they were going to start to sell the houses, but I didn't want to stop in Shilbottle to buy a house in Shilbottle. I would prefer to buy a house in Alnwick. So we came into Alnwick and we bought the house in Duke Street. And after that, the houses were sold. It belonged to the coal board then, the British Coal. They were all sold to the people who lived in them at a discount price, you know. So that's how they got rid of the houses in Shilbottle.
Were they council houses?
No, they belonged to the British Coal Board. All the land and the houses belonged to the Coal Board. So,
Why was it you wanted to be in Alnwick rather than Shilbottle?
well, mainly for the children, because they were at Shilbottle school, and there was more to do in Alnwick. They had football and they had the swimming pool and things like that then. And we thought it'd be better coming into Alnwick than stopping at Shilbottle. So we done that. Boy and a girl. One behind you.
So when you moved in, did you move in and rent and then buy, or did you?
No.
Just,
We bought, we made arrangements before we come into Alnwick. We bought a house in Alnwick before we moved in.
so you didn't take advantage of right to buy then?
No.
What did you think? A right to buy when it came in?
Right to buy would have been okay if they'd used the money they'd sold the houses for. If they'd used that money to build more, but they didn't. I don't know where that money's went or anything. It was supposed to go back to the main government, but what they've done with it, I have no idea. But they should have been building houses with that money that they bought the houses with. Oh, Maggie Thatcher. Oh. Margaret Thatcher. Well, she was one of the ones that caused all these problems with the mining industry. She was hell bent on closing the pits, and she did. And that's more or less it. The miners more or less played into their hands. They didn't have a vote, which they should have done really. And she starved the miners back to work.
Have a vote?
Well, they didn't have a vote. They were supposed to have a vote before they came out and strike, but they didn't. They walked out. And that was one of the reasons why some of the miners went back after a long time. It was starvation. So that's why they went back.
Why was there a miners' strike? Like, what was it?
Because it was something to do with there was going to be a lot of mines closed, and it was kept secret. And some did found papers that they were going to close the biggest part of the mines. And the government denied it at that time, but at the end it officially came true. And they did, they closed the mines. And they started importing coal from Poland, and they still are.
Do you think the closure of the mines and that loss of major industry has affected Alnwick and this part of the world?
I would say it would affect it at the time, because there was the coal mining industry was there was a lot of manpower in the mines, and there was a lot of wages paid, and it kept all the shops and everything going in your local towns. But they've sort of spring back now, because Shilbottle was almost dead and buried, but it's almost doubled its size now. So there's still a lot of people living in Shilbottle. And there's no jobs in Shilbottle, but they're travelling to Alnwick to do them jobs. Well, they closed them up, they were nationalised, and then they started to sell them off, and this is when the trouble started. Because when you're nationalised, you get subsidised for coal, where they stopped all the subsidizations, and that was it. Like, that was when things went a little bit funny when they went private. It was a little bit more dangerous sometimes, and the price of coal was going up. So they were just phasing it out. So it didn't help going private.
How old were you when you started working as a miner?
How old was I?
Mm-hmm.
21.
What was
And
it like working as a miner? Was it hard work?
yeah. It was hard work, but you enjoyed it. You know, different people. It was good work.
Can you tell us about when you first went down a mine, like on your first day of work, like what your thoughts were and...
What I thought was, what the hell have I let myself in for? That was initial thoughts. But because you had to go to Ashington to train, you had to do so many days training before you were allowed down a pit. But it was good work. I enjoyed it. As I say, the camaraderie was great. But no, I wouldn't change things again. It was good. But I don't know what I let myself in for the first day I went down the pit. Like.
How big was it? The mine?
The seam core was only 2'9", which is like that under that table.
Was it at first, obviously, was it scary at all?
Well, it was at first. But once you got used to it, it was just like any other work. You just got used to it. Just the same.
Was there ever any accidents?
Sorry?
Was there ever any accidents?
Oh yes, there was always accidents. There was quite a few accidents at Shilbottle and Whittle. There was quite a few.
Any bad ones?
Yeah, there was. I think the time I was there was 3 men killed. I think through different things. There was falls of rock and getting caught up with machinery.
Are you still in contact with anyone you used to work with in the mines?
Yeah, I see them nowadays, but there's not many left in Alnwick. There's not a lot left in Alnwick. Is there not?
How long did you, in the 80s, how long was the shift? And how many hours a week did you work, and what was the wages like? Was it good money?
It wasn't. It was good money for around here. It was good money for 7. You used to work 7.25 hours a shift. That was from surface to surface. And then privatisation came out, and then they put it up to 8. And then they paid a lot of men off, and then we being a shortage of men, they used to do 10-hour shifts, 5 days a week. But sometimes you had to work Saturday or Sunday because of the shortage of men, and you had to do a shift route over weekend. The job I was on, because you had to maintain all the pumps and everything down the pit to stop it flooding. So it ended up I was doing 10-hour shifts a week. So he was doing about 60 hours a week.
How did the mine strike affect you personally?
It didn't really affect me because I was a deputy, and I got signed over into a different union just before the strike. So we worked during the strike, but you had to cross the picket lines and everything at the same time. And then you had to work 1 week on and 1 week off, because they thought the deputies were doing work they shouldn't be doing. So they decided to split them and give them a week off, so there wasn't as many men down the pit. Because they thought we were doing jobs that they should be doing, but we wasn't doing jobs. We were, just looking after the safety aspect of the pit, gas and water.
Did you support the miners, though?
Something should have been done. Quite agree with them. Something should have been done, because what's happened now, but it was forecast then, and that everybody denied it in the government. But what they said was right. They said they would close the pits, and they did. So,
When did you finish working as a miner?
about 2005, I think it was, somewhere about there.
So did Shilbottle and Whittle close as part of that whole movement from It was on the 80s.
Yeah, Shilbottle and Whittle were separate pits at one time. And then they got the contractors in, and they made a drift all the way through into Whittle pit, and that's the way all the coal went out. They went out and up the drift, and that was they closed the Shilbottle side, and then moved everything to Whittle side. And it was just geological, and it wasn't profitable enough for them to keep it open, so they closed it. And
That was the 80s.
yeah. And then everybody got moved who wanted to go, went to Ellington, which was the last northeast pit shot.
Do you think it? Do you think it was a more? Was the problem that they wanted to close the pits so quickly, or was it just the fact that they wanted to close them?
Just wanted to close them. I just think they wanted to close them. That's my opinion.
Did you fall out with anyone because of it? Like, because obviously you were working, because you had a family, but like, did you ever fall out with anyone who you used to be friends with because of it?
No, that never came into anything. That. I mean, there was people who didn't like the idea you were working and they weren't. I mean, that's you take that as it comes, like. But you didn't bring anything up, or did you not?
And what was it like crossing a picket line?
Wasn't very nice, but you just had to do it, and that was our job. That's it.
What's a picket line?
What's a picket line?
Yeah.
Well, it's a bunch of men that are not very happy about going in when they're looking to. It's like they're wanting to get a pay rise, right? And they're fighting for a pay rise. But you're crossing that picket line, and don't forget, if they get a rise, you get a rise. That's the way it goes. So it's not nice.
How did they, like, what, did they do it, like, did the picket line do anything, as obviously the films, like, you see them, like, throwing stuff at the buses and stuff like that?
Not up here. It was very quiet up here, but it was quite bad further down Nottingham and Yorkshire way, where the big pits were. These are just little pits, 500 men. The big pits were down Yorkshire and Nottingham. That's where the trouble was. And that's where all the work was, because they used to stock the coal down there as well, and that was it.
The people you were working with, was there any characters that stick in your mind?
There was always somebody. You worked with a group of people, and you knew how they worked. And there was sometimes they would do some stupid things, but made you laugh a bit. But mainly, you worked well. You didn't have to tell them to do anything. You knew before. You just had that instinct. I'll do that now because that's ready to do this and that's ready to do that. But there was sometimes they would just, if they'd been out at nights, they might have had a few too much to drink. And sometimes it's not a good thing to do, but these things are finished now. But they used to come down, we used to help them out at times, just to sit down there and don't move. And that was sort of the way you done things. You looked after each other. And other times when you were going out the pit, you're supposed to walk. But you used to use the conveyor belting because it was quicker and easier. You just jumped on and lay down and keep flat. But you're supposed to get off at the motorised heads, but a lot of people didn't. They just went straight over the top. And there was one or two accidents that way, but they got out in one way or the other. But that was the kind of things it was. Everybody knew each other. If you worked with each other for a long time, you knew what they were going to do, or you could watch them and and keep an eye on them. It was good.
Being here in a mine.
Not a good thing.
No.
No, but I mean, somebody around about here might tell you at times, how you feel in the morning, and when you get out of bed and you go to work, you don't feel like going. So that's what it felt like. You don't, but you just sit them down and say, right, just take your time. You could do that then, but you couldn't do it now.
Did you ever have that scene that will come close
Just little knocks, really, just little bits of stone falling that hit you, and that was it. You know, not a great lot. Through the 32 years, I've been lucky. Never. So.
What are the positives to being a miner? And then the negatives to being a miner?
The positive, it's good work. You've got good mates round about you, and when you go, you do a shift, and you quite enjoy doing that shift. The negatives is the shift work itself, when you have to change shifts. You're working 3 shifts, and so you never get into your sleep cycle, and you have to work at weekends as well. Sometimes you do that, and that's the negatives. The positives, there's more positives than negatives, I think.
Would you recommend it as a job? I know you haven't came to me and said, I think I'll be the miner. Would you recommend it?
Yes, when I left, it was all mechanised. You were talking coal, the height of this roof, and it was all machines. So there was no really heavy work. There were a lot of dust, an awful lot of dust and whatnot. But it was quite a good job then. It wasn't like what it was when I first started. So through the mechanisation, there was no heavy lifting or anything then. It was all done for you with machinery.
So did the job just improve over the years?
It improved. There was more safety brought in, and there was more dust suppression and better ventilation, which made a big difference. That was the ventilation was the main thing. You got a lot fresher air in, so that was better.
When they closed the mines, how did they make them safe? You know, like public being able to go and just.
Shilbottle, they capped them about 30 feet down the shaft. They put cross members in, and then they filled it full of rubble, and then they capped it with cement, so that stopped anybody going near the shafts. Whittle has just been in the papers there lately. They just put a gate across the drift. It's a metal gate, but the water's, it's well up the drift now. And there were people talking about going down there, but you've got to be very, very careful what you're doing. So tell you, because there's still a lot of gas comes up that bit. So.
During the strike, you said that a lot of miners' families were starving, and that's why they had the pressure to go back.
Yeah.
Do you know any of the families that were starving? Or?
Not there was a few, one or two at down the Ashton way. They had food parcels taken out. There was people donated food, and there was like food parcels taken out to the striking miners, and that's when a lot of them they just couldn't sort of live on that way, so they had to go back, because there were some of them had some big families then, and it wasn't always getting. You depended on donations, why donations sometimes dry up, so that's what happened then.
Was the company behind the miners, against the miners, was it split down the middle?
You've got some support from the unions, but I would say you've seen yourself on the news from years ago, I suppose you've seen it, where there was always fights going on between the police and the miners. And the miners and the police didn't go on, and there's some of them just still don't get on, because of there was some sort of a little bit niggle between the police and them, because they were making a lot of money them times, and they were telling the miners what they spent their money on, going on holidays, and they're saying, "Oh, we're coming in for a shift tonight. That's another new car," you know. So they were getting a lot of money, but they were niggling away at the miners all the time, and this is how some fights broke out. Just.
Because they were getting overtime.
They wanted overtime. But mind that they were told what to do as well from higher up. They were also told what to do.
Was there much of a divide in Alec between the miners and the police?
No, I think the picket line only had about 3 policemen on it at Whittle. That was it. There was no trouble whatsoever. But they were there just to voice, and that was it.
When you got paid, was it just like like on Friday or Saturday? Did you it was just like pay packet? Or did you know?
When I first started, you had to go and get your pay packet at the wages office, but and then they came out with your bank numbers, and that was it. It was paid straight in your bank, and you didn't have anything to do with anything.
What was it like when you come up? Because obviously you're on the ground for 7-10 hours a day. What's it like? When you come up to the surface, and does it feel like?
Oh, it's nice.
Yeah.
It rubbed your eyes a bit, but aye, it was good then,
And is there any long-term health effects from being a miner and working in those conditions?
Yeah, breathing. Yeah. A lot of people come out with they've got their knees, which is, just the hard work on them on there. Elbows, shoulders, your lungs, and that was about it. Like.
Is there help for miners though? People, was there help? Did you have?
There was help. I think there's more help nowadays than there is what there was then. Yeah, there is places where you can go and you get assessed and you get maybe a little pension, but that's about it. That is it. But the biggest one was mainly your knees and your elbows, shoulders, and your dust mainly.
So were you on your tummy,
Yeah, you were on your hands and knees working, and just shoveling coal. You might think it's hard, but it's easy once you get into it. Once it's like everything else. Once you get used to it.
Is there any working mines left in the UK?
I don't think there is. There used to be a one up Haltquistle way, but I think that's closed as well now.
Do you think the country would have been better if we'd kept going, if we kept the pits open and kept all that work from workers?
Well, it's a different world now because everybody's on about air pollution and all the rest of it. I mean, when you look at London, we all the fumes about it now. That's just motors. I mean, if you were living the power stations up here at Alcan and whatnot, they're not big power stations, but the big ones were hauling a lot of muck out. I'm quite sure they could have taken. They've started it now. I've always said fracking is the way because you're getting the gas out. You're not touching anything else. You're getting gas. Because the outside Coquet Island there, the coal's about 12 foot high to 15 foot high, and it goes Vernet to Norway. So if you start fracking out there, I don't know if they can do it yet underwater, but if they start fracking there, they've got a lot of gas.
So, no, definitely for you.
I was just going to ask, were women allowed to be miners?
No.
They weren't.
No.
Why?
That was the only industry women weren't allowed. I don't know why.
I'll tell you why, because they never afford to get down there. They're like,
No.
But they can keep the miners.
There was I didn't see anybody fighting to get down there.
Couldn't think of anything worse.
It's great that you loved it though. I mean, because I guess if you love a job that is a really hard or how society is a very hard job.
Yeah.
You've got work.
Yeah.
I went on a mine in Beamish, and it was horrible.
Very similar.
Beamish.
I feel very sorry. No miners. The way I
That's a posh one.
I think all the way down, so like panic attack.
No, aye.
What's the is there a thing called trembling finger? Or
White
something?
finger.
Say again?
Vibration of white finger.
Yeah, what's that about?
Well, with the machines they used to use down the pit, they used to use electric and hydraulic. And you know yourself, if you're drilling anything, you're going to get a vibration. And that's what caused it, because he was using the machinery that much he was using it about 4 or 5 hours a day. So it's got to do some effect to you. And this is what done it. It's supposed to close the blood vessels on the fingers with the vibration. It's not only the miners that get mined, it's anybody working with people in the water board, building industry, anybody who's working with any vibrating tools, they'll get white finger if they use them long enough.
And you know you're on different shifts. Did you do a different job when you were on different shifts, or were you always on the same?
No, that was different shift, same job.
And what different jobs could you do down the mine?
Well, you could go onto the face. You could back up, which is bringing the supplies to the face. There was electricians, there was fitters, there was joiners, there was bricklayers, there was loads of jobs down the pit, you know. But that was, once you were allocated to a job, mainly that was the job you done, unless you fancied doing someone else and you went and asked for a change.
And when you're on the face, like what sort of stuff did you have to do on the face? Literally, like what was it?
Well, the face you had to just get the coal out and shill bottle, you had to shovel it off. And then when that was finished, there was a team of men came in on the next shift and they moved the belt for the next one. And the men came in on the face, on the main gateways, and they, what's known as the canch, they got rid of that. And it moved the roadways forward. So everything was done at a different time. And so they worked on a shift system, so everything was done.
And were you on the face?
Yeah.
And was that the hardest job being on the face?
No, they were all hard jobs. It just depends what conditions were like. Some of them were wet, you know, some of them were really wet. So, but you still had to work on them.
Did it feel like a long time when you were in the mine, like on your shifts, or did the time go?
It went quick. Because you went down, you had a cup of tea or something to start with, and then that was it, or you finished. You didn't stop 2 hours and say, oh, I'm allowed half an hour now. You worked all the way.
So you didn't have a bed? Did you have a bed? Like
No, you just sat down where you could.
Mm-hmm. Was there opportunity to did you get free coal?
You got free coal. You got about 8 bags of coal a month, which was quite good at Showball. But they decided there was a lot of. This is when people were getting gas put in, and the likes of the big towns here were saying, right, we're going to do away with the coal and get the gas. But where we lived, Showball, you couldn't get gas because it's down the bottom end of the village. Mm-hmm. So we were still getting coal. But when I moved to Alnwick, I lost that. So that was lost.
And in Alnwick, did you have a coal fire as well or not?
Changed. It was gas.
Oh, you were gas. And did you prefer having the coal fire or the gas?
The gas was a lot easier. A lot easier when you can flick a switch in the morning. Was it?
We went the other way. We had gas all our lives, then we moved to Aberlands. We had a
Cool.
fire. That's what happened. And we had to get up every morning, light the fire.
Different heat, mind. Different heat.
Wow. Nice once it's lit.
No, it's a trouble getting it lit.
Brilliant. That's any other thoughts? Go on, just ask. You know that's me.
It's not like a secret.
Well, then you won't answer because what
I'm just curious. What if you needed the toilet?
Sorry?
I'm sorry. What if you needed the toilet down the line? What did you do?
Oh, well, that was another thing. You had to go, you didn't touch any flat stones. If you went away and you seen a flat stone, you didn't touch it.
Why?
Because someone had been there.
Oh,
Right? There was no toilets. That was it.
is that why women went off?
Yeah. You went away out the way, and that was it.
Oh.
There was somebody asked me where the canteen was when I came down the pit on a visit. And I said, I'm just sorry, there's none here, I'm joking. But that was it. They thought we went to a canteen.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't, you just sit down, you just scratch a hole and sit down and have your bait.
Was there any times where the mine would be shut, you know, like for a period of time, like Christmas?
Christmas, yes, it was shut, but it had to be still open for safety reasons, because a pit is a living thing. and there's always water, pumps breaking down, and things like that.
So there would have been somebody down the pit?
There's down the pit 24/7.
Yeah.
Yeah, someone there. Well, it really happened because I think Arthur Scargill and Margaret Thatcher were at loggerheads, and she was going to be very dominant, and she was going to close some pits. So the union took it upon themselves to pull everybody out. Not everybody came out at once. A certain few came out, and then it kept going and going. But when he pulled them out, he didn't give them a vote. I think, this is my opinion, if Arthur Scargill had given the men a vote, the men wouldn't go back. But I think that was where he slipped up a bit. A lot of people think this. It was just if he'd given the vote, there would have been it would have been different outcome. I'm not saying the pits would still be here. They would have closed, but nobody's not in such a big style as they did. And that was more or less that.
Who's Arthur Scargill?
Who's Arthur Scargill?
Yeah.
He's a Yorkshireman. He was in the mining industry for a long time, and he became the union president. He worked his way up to be union president, and now I believe he's still in London, living in a flat in London, but we never hear anything about him now. You never hear anything about him.
Was it they decided they wanted to close the mines, but
The government decided to
everyone
close.
should have voted if that was how
Yes.
it would be? Was that?
No, voted on whether they should go on strike or not.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
right.
He was head of the union
Yeah.
for all the miners, and he should have done a vote and said, "What should we strike to get what we want?"
Like you have to do now. Any union has to have a vote before the strike.
What did you think of Arthur Scargill as a union leader and as a man?
It was what he said eventually came true. What he said, he just didn't go about it the right way. As I say, he was a bit like Margaret Thatcher. She was very strong-headed. But that was a time.
What did you think about when she talked about their ending with him?
The what?
She sort of said that they were fighting, the Argentines.
She's. I don't know. They put a lot onto Margaret Thatcher, but she did have a certain power about her. As you know, when she went for Argentina, went into Falklands, she was just that sort of woman, and she wasn't going to be beat. Because when the miners were on strike, she brought all the coal in from Germany and Poland. Brought it in the back door. And that was the letdown, because the power stations were still giving out power.
So could you quickly tell us about the 70s then, the strikes of the 70s?
No,
Why
they-
were different?
They were different. They were just about wages and conditions. Totally different thing altogether. The miners' wages and whatnot. That wasn't about loss of jobs or anything. That was about miners. I mean, it was the same with the car factories. I mean, the car factories were more out than they were working. But the miners were going for a livable wage. That's what M2 strikes were about. Nothing to do with closures. And
how long did the strikes last?
sorry,
How long did the strikes last?
it was only about 6 or 8 weeks. Both strikes, and that was it. It didn't last long because we got what we wanted. Because the
How
wind.
long did it last in the 80s?
Well, that was a long one. That was about a year, wasn't it? That was a long time. And as I say, starvation brought a lot of the men back, and not starvation, but lack of food and lack of a lot of things. They've seen their kids sort of not getting what they wanted, so they went back to work.
What do you think of the 80s as a decade in general? Like, you look at 70s, 80s, 90s. Like, what do you think of it in general?
In general, it's advancing all the time, and it's getting quicker and quicker. Nowadays, I mean, technology is a way ahead of everything else. I mean, I'm lost with technology, but if things are getting better, as long as they can keep the manpower and the jobs, good on them. But you've got to have employment. You've got to have employment.
Do you think the lack of employment damaged the young people of the time in terms of, like, you know, if you were a young man living around here in the 70s, you'd think, well, I can go down the mine, whereas in the 80s you didn't have that.
You did. I mean, you could finish a job on a Friday and you could start another one on a Monday in the 70s. Anybody will tell you that. And then it's getting harder and harder until you start getting degrees and going to college and all this. But you see, it's coming back round again where you're better off having an apprenticeship.
Definitely.
This college and all this is starting to wear thin a bit. To me, all they're doing is getting a load of debt. If you can get a job with an apprentice for apprenticeship for something, go for it.
And so, what were the young'uns like in the 80s? I mean, how old were you in the 80s in 1980? How old did you be?
I was 38.
38?
Yeah, 35-ish, yeah.
Right. And what was it like to be, for your kids, like, what was the era like growing up in the 80s for them?
It was, I mean, from nowadays, looking at it nowadays, the kids now have a lot more chance in life for sport, different things. Because when I was there, I had to work either a Saturday or a Sunday. It was very rare you got a weekend off. Whereas nowadays, a lot of the parents have weekends off, so they can interact, or they can do anything they like, really. They can go away mountain biking, they can go racing, they can do anything they want now for 2 days, because that's their time. But we didn't have a lot of time then. So it's better that way.
Did your kids, like, people complain about kids not going out and playing out and stuff that way? Was it safe for your kids to, like, go out and play?
No, they were never in. We're hardly in. So I don't know where he went, but he was hardly ever in.
All you did there.
Any questions you asked on camera? Oh yeah, start it for me.
Yeah. Did you have ponies when you were down the pit?
There was ponies down the pit, but they came out fairly. I can't give a right date when they came out, but I would say it was the mid-80s up over. Yeah, it was about the mid-80s, 90s. They were all out the pit. There was very few down the pit. I think there was only 3 ever down the pit when I went there. But there was none. There was ructions on about animals being down the pit. Yet they sent us down, So but a pony, it was taboo.
Did you look after the ponies?
Yeah, well, there was a stableman. They were better looked after than you and me. They had vets there on call, and they were fed the best, everything. Get washed down and everything.
And then you had to go to the toilet in
Mm-hmm.
the night.
At least they cleaned their stable out,
What we said a day before about the deck, so when you come on, you'd have to get a train.
Yeah. Well, Shellbottle is about 1,000 feet deep. Shellbottle. You went down there, you got onto a train, a little one of these battery ones. You know how they're doing battery cars now, where they had battery locos, and they took you in about 3 or 4 mile, and then you had to get the conveyor belts after that. Then you had to walk a little bit, and then you started walking. So you'd be travelling about 3/4 to an hour every day, one way. So if you were working 7¼ hours, you can take them 2 hours off. So that's what you're working. When it went private, they looked at that. They said, "No, we'll make the hours longer, so you can be on the job longer."
And then when you went to Allington, what were you saying about how deep that was?
That one, it wasn't very deep. It's only about 600 feet deep, but it went a lot further out, right in the North Sea. So that was about 10 or 12 mile.
So you found at the sea?
Yeah,
You never scared the sea was going
No.
to go in?
never bothered you.
Spent it on a deal like that, you wouldn't do it.
Was it dark?
Was it what?
Dark.
No. There was plenty, everything really. It was the roads you travelled were always lit up. It was just when you went away to work, you had to. That's when you had to start putting your cap lamps and everything on.
Was it different, like, you know, when you go down, it's just one tunnel, or is it like bits shoot off?
Well, the bits shoot off. There's always two main tunnels. There's one for your intake air, which is fresh, and your exhausting air, which is dirty. So they work each other. There's a working with a fan system. So that's the way it works. But there's loads of little places away off. You've got to just divert the air where you want it. And you've done that with the likes of the joiners and the bricklayers. They came along and made doors and different things.
And as I said, I asked you the question before, but I'll repeat it. So is your career as a miner, did the safety conditions just get better as you went along?
Safety-wise, yes. But it sometimes got a bit too far. That was the only thing.
How?
Because he asked the man to do a job. I mean, they loved this. They asked him to do a job. And then they would say, right, I'm not doing that job, or you get a risk assessment. So you had to go and risk assess that job before they would do it. But they were just having you on. That was the law, and they had it. 9 times out of 10 they would say, oh, right, I'll do it. And that was it. But there was 1 or 2 times.
So it got better until it was good, and then
It started to go a little bit too far.